Hello, and welcome to my channel. Prepare for a night of terror, psychosis, cults, night stalkers, hostages, let's not forget massacres. A night when you're in someone's unconscious mind, hoping and praying you can run away from the creepy person in your backyard, or maybe escape from the deranged person holding you hostage. Being the audience yourself, you start to ask yourself, how did I get into this transcendental science? It'll trap you in your own mind like a prisoner. Lock your doors, say your prayers, stay out of the driveway, be aware of the bumps in the night, and the prickles in back of your neck during a good night's sleep.
I'm a single mother from the streets of Detroit, and I go by the name of Basin to protect my identity. I started trafficking for about 4 years now. The first 2 years were pretty scary until I realized dropping off a package was fast money, and it became an addiction. I would always tell myself I'm going to get out of it, but I just couldn't, because I was so amazed at how fast the money came in. And I needed to take care of my kids because of the economic struggle in my home of Detroit. I make $3,000 a trip, 4 trips a month. But the best thing about this fast money was that in Detroit, Halloween made more money than Christmas, sadly because of the narcotics. In the beginning, I knew the suburbs and college kids were the best customers to persuade in buying, but when I got into this, I decided to give myself a boost, and I would cross the border to Canada. Pulling up to the bridge was the first thing I had to be cautionary with. I was always asked by the police at the border where I was headed to, and I'd just say visiting family. I kept a straight face without stuttering and tried not to look jittery. On October 30th, 30 hours before the big Halloween rave started, my connections in Detroit were keeping me busier than ever. I feared being caught by the CPB since the Detroit sector is kind of a unique sector within all of the United States due to it being a complete water border with Canada. I knew better not to ask any questions about the package, as in what kind of drugs am I bringing. Instead, I just followed directions and got my money quickly. I always prayed I would never get caught and end up doing life in prison. After making my way out of the bridge, I had 10 more minutes to my destination, ready to drop off my package to an abandoned crack house. I decided to park my car on a dead-end street. Although it was daytime, something felt pretty eerie, like the energy of the place was so off. A random person from far away who looked like they were tweaking kept their eyes on me. I ignored it and just rushed into the crack house. I gasped and saw 2 rats quickly run near my feet. My orders were to go downstairs and drop off the package in a corner. While making my way downstairs, I started to hear a crunching sound. I was easily startled and my anxiety acted up. The floor reeked of urine and feces. I quickly looked for a corner to drop off the package and grab my cash, which was left upstairs. I started to hear the crunching sound again, but this time it sounded like someone else was in the house with me. So I carelessly dropped the package and gave up on finding a safe place. But in a second, what I thought was a typical addict came at me with a machete. I saw the person swinging the machete uncontrollably. I wasn't sure if this person was on a pill or snorted something because of the hyperactivity behavior. He yelled out, "What's in the bag?" I simply said, "I don't know, I'm just leaving." But the guy pushed me on the floor and ordered me to open it. I did what he said and he ordered me in a menacing manner. He opened the bag and it looked like a bunch of mollies, ecstasy, and a few pounds of cocaine. He snatched the bag away from me and told me, "Let's play a game. I'll be the supplier and you'll be the junkie. I want to see you snort some of this." I froze and stood plastered to the wall. I begged him not to force me because I wasn't sure if it was what I thought it was. But he also forced me to tell him who sent me, because he was given the wrong drugs a week ago. I really was clueless. It was either life or death. There was no way I was snorting anything. But then again, he started pointing the machete at me. I closed my eyes and prepared for the worst. When he saw I wouldn't cooperate, he began dragging me up the stairs. I begged to let me go, and that he could have all the drugs he wanted, but he insisted I tell him who sent me. Obviously, that was a big no-no in the kind of game I was in. I was also done for, because I was in the middle of nowhere. But as soon as I struggled and decided to fight back, I threw a stone that was on the floor, and I threw it at the glass window. I started to hear voices like two people talking. I let out a blood-curdling scream. But out of nowhere, I saw a couple coming through the door. They both looked like they were on narcotics. The couple literally walked by me unbothered and oddly. They both looked like they had drug-induced skin pigmentation. And they walked in a stiff, wide-legged stance with a lumbering walk, almost as if they were zombies. I was pushed on the floor by the addict, and he decided whether to tie me up or not. I see him reach for a see-through recycled bag while giving me the side eye. We both locked eyes for a few seconds. He then starts telling me life hasn't been the same since he became an addict. I try to put on a sympathizing act in this flight or fight moment, slowly plotting how to escape. As I see him hurting and crying in an agonizing way, I slowly move my legs away, trying to make a run for it. He then gave me a jump scare by scolding me. "Don't even think about it," he said. He starts choking me with his eyes wide and a hostile look. I'm not sure what happened, but next thing I know, I passed out. I'm not sure how long I passed out for, but when I woke up, I noticed a needle sticking out of my arm. I woke up super drowsy, not knowing what happened. I pulled out the needle from my arm and struggled getting up. My body felt bruised. I was in excruciating pain, and as I got up, I realized I was limping. My right knee was sore. I really felt like someone physically assaulted me, and I managed to open the door. On my way out, I saw an insane person coming out with a baseball bat and a ski mask, screaming like a maniac. I struggled trying to keep my head straight, panicking, turning the knob. I opened the door and fell flat on my face. I slowly picked myself up trying to run, but I continued limping to the dead end where my car was. Unfortunately, it looked like someone robbed my car. My only option was to run over the fence, and it took me a few minutes while I struggled to get over it. I kept looking back, hoping the insane person didn't find me. When I finally made it over the fence, I walked a mile and found the nearest gas station to call the cops and to report I've been hurt. After this experience of dropping off drugs, I knew it was time for me to walk away, and I had to do it silently, hoping no one had eyes on me, or I was done for. I used to work for my mother-in-law delivering flowers, but when Valentine's Day came, her sales went up a whole lot. I was told to make 4 deliveries of flowers and roses that day. When it came to the final delivery, I was super relieved because I was ready to go home after and spend the rest of the day with my boyfriend, since we had reservations for 8 p.m. at a restaurant. After struggling to find parking in downtown Manhattan, I finally made it out of my car with a large bouquet of flowers. I realized I was entering a small apartment between 2 delis. I buzzed the person's door code and I heard, "Who is it?" I simply replied, "Delivery for Jessica Dukewich." I noticed a male answered and buzzed me in. I walked in the building, walking up to the 3rd floor with a heavy bouquet. I began to knock, and I began to hear arguing and screaming, thinking I may have walked into drama. Some Valentine's Day for them, I thought, amusingly. But then I heard a more agonizing scream and began to hear, "Stop, stop, no, get away." I dropped the bouquet of roses while hearing the screams. Then it sounded like choking and gagging. so I easily looked through the hole of the door. Although I couldn't see too good through the hole, it looked like a male about 6 feet holding a female by the neck. I opened my eyes wide, and it looked like the man punctured a woman with a sharp object. Then I heard a loud grunt. The body hit the floor and I stepped away. Startled wasn't even the word to use. I see the door open slowly, like someone opened it halfway but not all the way. I heard a male voice. "Bring in the bouquets, we're ready," he said calmly. I didn't know what to think. I guess I felt a bit relieved yet naive, thinking maybe the female wasn't punctured. Maybe they just had a bad fight. I took my time and picked up the roses and walked inside slowly. Looking all around the apartment, I noticed a very foul smell, sort of like metallic and rotting fish. It almost made me want to gag. I continued to the living room and yelled, "Look, I'm going to leave them here." I heard a bumping sound coming from the back room. So I slowly make my way to the room to let the person know that the bouquet of roses was here. But it turns out it was the bathroom. I opened the door and turned on the lights. I screamed my lungs out and saw a female in the tub with blood leaking out of her stomach, with the Valentine's Day card near her hands. Her legs looked like they were twitching. My teeth chattered and I began puking on the floor. I turned around and saw the same male I saw through the peak of the hole. He had a beard and long blonde hair. He looked so creepy and menacing, but he began smiling at me and calmly asked me, "She's beautiful, isn't she?" I shook my head with my eyes wide open and told him, "I just want to leave the roses here and go home." He ordered me to wait in the living room, but I slowly walked past him, scared out of my mind. Then he runs to me and starts caressing my arm. I wanted to resist, but my nerves were shot. I couldn't even react without survival instincts. "It wasn't my fault, you know," he said. "She pushed me." I slowly nodded my head. He tells me to unbutton my blouse. I said no and walked away. But he then grabbed me by the hair and dragged me to the bathroom where the body was. He threw me in the tub and told me to hold the roses. I begged for him to leave me alone, and that I didn't want anything but just to go home. But strangely, he left me there in the tub and closed the door. It felt like he was nailing the door so that I could not escape. I stood in the bathroom terrified, ripping my hair and screaming until my vocal cords felt inflamed. I went on the floor, rocking myself back and forth, praying. I couldn't believe I left my cell phone in the car. As I continued to cry, it felt like minutes had passed and there was no window. The smell of the dead body was getting worse, making me sicker. I decided to open the card the dead girl had in her hand and read everything. "After months of stalking you, and you rejecting me, I have to have you. And now we can see each other in heaven." I was so clueless, out of nowhere I heard cops. It sounded like someone broke the chain. Like cops were invading the apartment. I started banging on the floor, screaming for help. I found out the guy who killed himself slit his throat, so I was taken to the police station for questioning and fingerprints. I thought, was this a setup? A sick stalker who wanted someone else to get caught? What drove him to do this to the woman and himself?